The scriptwriter is due to interview me later in the day. I have it all written down and I plan to tell him word for word what happened that night. I also keep wondering about what I've told. If all goes well, we'll have a movie on our hands in about 2 years. The possibility of this overwhelms me. The story I have to tell, if told right, could become one of the biggest chronicles ever to hit Hollywood. And because there are rumors floating around that HBO might intervene with a better offer, I feel my best option is to wait and see what happens. Ironically, it's in my control, and I haven't decided on anything yet. Except one thing, to tell the story how it went down on that fateful December 23rd, 2012, a Sunday. The first thing I'll say to the scriptwriter, a quote from James Michener, "Only a mind steeped in true love can write irony. The others write satire." The second thing I'll say, that fateful night started like every Sunday night at the Griddle House, until my friend Boudreaux, sitting across from me in a booth, reached down into his duffel bag and pulled out an old Colt 45. There was an expression on the Cajun's face that I had never seen. I asked him what the hell he was doing, and he said, "I'm getting ready to hold up the place." Not 5 minutes later, we were held captive. The night in question started ordinarily enough. We had shared 10 weeks of lonely, nothing else to do Sunday nights. Yes, those same people, Sunday in and Sunday out. I'm punctual when it comes to a routine, so I found myself seated amongst them for the 10th Sunday in a row. The Sunday that Boudreaux snapped. Our last Sunday together. Now I'm getting ahead of myself. A few months before that historic night, I had returned from France, where I spent 2 years studying culinary arts. This was a big deal for me, for any woman, in many circles unheard of. I was very proud of myself. In fact, in Paris, I found the love for which I had searched my whole life, and that delicious amour was not some gorgeous man, but filling the hungry bellies of the human race. There was no doubt in my mind that I had found a home in this. I had talent, I had passion, I had a reason to go on. For the first time in my life, I didn't need the comforting thought of a man's love. Under the circumstances, or rather the critical direction of Chef Pierre, I learned the art of French cuisine, and more than just cooking the dishes. I learned how to set a table, how to serve wine, how to be proficient when it came to fine dining. Being a part of Chef Pierre's program also meant I could work anywhere in the world. I glowed surreptitiously with pride every time he congratulated me on my skills. He told me that I had this uncanny ability to describe the ingredients once I tasted a dish. He said I had depth. I understood acidity, nuance, that my presentation skills were par excellence. I also learned to speak French well. It happened that way, waking up one fine morning and saying aloud to myself, "Dang, Margie, you dreamt of French all night." So there I was, 20 years old, living abroad, going after it, doing something only most women dreamed about in this business. I thought I had made the right choice. Yet as time went by, in spite of my freedom in Paris, nostalgia kept pulling me back home to Mississippi. For I was a Southerner at heart, and I longed for sultry nights. I wanted to suck on crawfish heads and eat corn and potatoes cooked in Satiran's crab boil. I even showed Chef Pierre how to make a kick-ass cocktail sauce, my own secret recipe. More than anything, I long for my family. No, this is what I will tell the script writer. Let me state for the record that my name is Margaret Antoinette Maine, although I go by Margie. I have olive skin and freckles plague my face. My mom is from Puerto Rico, and my dad, God rest his soul, came from Irish descent. And if asked about my father's death, I will say it happened during my second month in Paris, when I was learning how to prepare a piece of pork filet mignon. Chef Pierre was showing me how to stuff the meat with Beaufort cheese when an administrative assistant entered and said something in French, which I didn't get. My mentor turned to me with a befuddled look, unsure of how to respond. The first thought that came to my mind, something's happened with my visa. They're going to make me go home. Chef Pierre wasted no time telling me that it was my father. Je suis désolé, he said, adding, mes condolences, and then blended words about a terrible car accident, which wasn't all too clear. I remember thinking the next words out of the chef's mouth would be that my father was up at the hospital, recovering. It was not to be. I knew at that moment I would never see my father again. Oh God, I thought. How can this be? I felt the room vibrate. I remember stumbling backward. The world as I knew it shattered. My father, the man I most adored, gone. Cold turkey deleted from my life. 2 days later, I returned home to Long Beach, Mississippi, thinking I was no longer the black sheep of the family. After the funeral, I was torn between staying with my mother or continuing my life abroad. But there was my mother, after all was said and done, telling me, Margie, you gotta go get it sometimes. Don't be scared, baby. Sometimes you have to knock on doors. And whatever you do, don't procrastinate. Your father's gone, and he's not coming back. I didn't want to admit it, but I think she was trying to tell me there's nothing holding me back anymore. Actually, nothing hold either one of us back. We were free to choose our own lives now. So back to Paris I went. While I was in Paris, it gave me time to think about my mother. I missed her very much. I felt I had left her behind. Guilt consumed me for days and nights, especially on those lonely evenings when Paris seemed to sleep. I felt I had no choice. Was my sanity at stake? Was I selfish? It was my dream, after all. The fact alone that I had worked under Chef Pierre would get me a job in any fine eatery in New York. Plus, I had to find what I was looking for. I suddenly saw Paris in a new light. My subconscious kept telling me, Mom will understand. It's what she wants you to do. During my tutelage under Chef Pierre, as you can imagine, I eat way too much. Consequently, I don't consider myself too attractive unless I fix myself up. And even this becomes a nightmare for me because of my thick curly hair. Don't forget I'm half Puerto Rican, and I'm no hairstylist either. Actually, in certain lights, so I've been told, I bear striking resemblance to Greta Garbo. As for dating, I don't do that anymore. I have found a good man, and I don't need anybody else. He's sweet and attractive, and he has the prettiest almond-shaped eyes. I don't suppose I'll get into that right now, but I'll probably tell you more about him later. Enough beating around the proverbial bush. My story really starts upon my return from France, not long before I was getting ready to turn 21, the day I would receive the inheritance my father had left for me. $250,000. I had every intention of using this money to open my dream restaurant. It seemed I had everything in place, which was a tall order for someone my age. When I got back to town, I hung out for a while, hooked up with my friends, and one clear morning found myself looking in the mirror thinking, you can't name one person that you haven't anything in common with anymore. This brings me back to the routine I established at the Griddle House, binge night, as I like to call it. The one exception to my rule. An indulgence where I would stuff myself once a week with 3 pecan waffles drizzled in butter and syrup, a side of bacon, and a bowl of butter-laden grits. If that wasn't enough, in my gluttony, I contributed to this high-caloric meal a pot of coffee and a pack of Marlboros. All of this consumption taking place before not much later than midnight, the point where I would return home to my lonely life and fall asleep to reruns of that 70s show and Friends. The other part of my routine consisted of long, drawn-out conversations with my friend Michel Boutreau, an 87-year-old Cajun man I met the first Sunday. He was from Boudreaux, Louisiana, which wasn't even on the map, but it was there, according to the state of Louisiana. It's their domain, Boutreaux told me in that crazy dialect. You just gotta go away south of Houma. I felt I knew this man. He became what I considered a close friend. In fact, I felt I knew him better than anybody did. Or so I thought. I looked over at Boudreaux, who was confident and outwardly righteous, like a shrewd sailor that carries the wisdom of the world. He was placid, insightful, clever. He was brash and bold. Physically, hardly the specimen. Boudreaux probably weighed less than 130 pounds. Heck, I weighed more than he did. And I was lucky as well, if I ever saw him clean-shaven every 3rd week. His skin was leathered, his hands were calloused, his face appeared brindled, like an old baseball glove. Every so often he looked 10 times his senior. Occasionally I thought the stray patron wondered if he wasn't my grandfather on his last leg, spending lost time with his granddaughter. I guess what I'm trying to say is that Boudreaux didn't beat around the proverbial bush. The old Cajun was honest and had this undying view of life that held the belief of a good man. More importantly, he explained to me about the world in shades of gray. Elements of life I had overlooked during my first 2 decades on this planet. He at times was difficult to understand. His Cajun dialect spun a web of words and phrases I'd never heard. On occasion he spoke French, only French, when he was in a bad mood or grumpy, and not the kind of French I had learned in Paris. Cajun French, they called it. I will tell you that Boudreaux held merit, and now and again the weight of the world. He told me about his ancestors, how they'd come from a long line of Acadians, people who'd immigrated from France to modern-day Nova Scotia, or what they called Acadia. He said that they brought with them the old ways, with them preserving as well the tongue of ancient 17th century France. I remember Boudreaux saying one night, We spoke nothing but the old Francais until the first grade. Then they make us speak to English. They treated us bad, man. Of course, much of these explanations had come across in this hodgepodge of words, which would reel me to the brink of frustration. Yet no matter how aggravated I became by the man, and Boudreaux could be nerve-wracking, one trait of demeanor demanded my respect. In his relations with me, he always went out of his way to be polite. I see now that Boudreaux, without complaint, absorbed my grievances, my dreams, throughout those 10 weeks, making me feel good about myself. In spite of my faults, he had focused on the hypocrisy of my life without me even noticing. I didn't see anything coming our way. Boudreaux knew I was going to open that restaurant. He knew I was going to receive that inheritance. He knew it. He knew damn well it was my dream. Not to mention we had spent many hours going over the dishes his grandmother had taught him. Boudreaux's advice came to me with prudence, with a laugh here and a laugh there, and, "Man, don't be so couillon. Sometimes my parent told me I can't go fishing. Then I make a big bobbin. I wonder about you sometimes. You know what I find? Everything is pouilly. Your life, my life, everything." "What do you mean?" "That means her life stinks, man." "Oh, come on, Boudreaux. Things aren't that bad." "Don't fool yourself, Bib. Everybody is so full of the gumbo yaya." I remember thinking that Boudreaux must have been fed up. I grimaced. I said with sarcasm, "I guess I didn't catch that in French class," thinking it might just cool him off. Boudreaux's reply came with agitation. "Tête dure, t'inquiète-toi." I wasn't sure what that meant, but I guess I got on his nerves sometimes. At any rate, we had discussed Cajun cooking in detail. The old Acadian word for oatmeal was bargeau. It came from the modern word in France for gruel, or coarse ground grain, better known in South Louisiana as Cajun oatmeal. I found this interesting, seeing as how my restaurant would boast the authentic carte du jour of southern Louisiana. "Sugar cane, reduce it down?" "Well, the sugar cane's the secret, boo. Maybe a little brown sugar." To which I replied, "Some things aren't just that simple, I guess." "We all ate it as juniors. I guess that when it comes down to the truth, I got me some coon ass in my blood. But even the rich Cardines, they ate the bargeau." "So you learn all these recipes from your grandma?" "Yeah, you right. Now, Mama, there was un bon Cardine. She take me to the boucherie area here, where they slaughter the hogs. Cool, let me tell you, that was something special. As a junior, I'd wake up every morning to the couscous, and put a cream, a little bacon. You talking about some yum. I wanted to know every detail, the secret ingredients she had taught her grandson. I was going to feature them on my menu. Authentic Cajun cuisine, fine dining style. Sure, there were plenty of restaurants along the coast, most of them featuring goldfish, either broiled or fried, and of course the ordinary steak menus at most places, because I wanted to do something without the standard offer. "Boudreaux, tell me about the coup bouillon. I just can't seem to get it right." "Man, the base gotta be strong, man. The fish gotta be fresh. And good juicy onions. I got a different opinion, though." "What's that?" I said. "You stick to the etouffee." Like I might have said to my father, "No, silly, everybody makes that. I want something different, something glamorous." "May, the base gotta be... May, I got a good side dish for you, then." "What's that?" "Mock chow. You slice the corn off the cob, cook it up in the spices with plenty of celery, onion, and peppers. Sometimes I like to add a little tasso. Otherwise, you cook up the etouffee. But what about the filet, Boudreaux? What's the secret? Les Bons Temps Rouler leaves, man. Don't be cheap. The old Cajun looked at me curiously. He was right. I should have remembered this. And the roux? Boudreaux paused, as if imagining his grandmother with an old wooden spoon in hand. Mama's specialty. I've been trying to perfect it, Boudreaux, but it keeps burning. There's a trick to that, man. I think Emerald says to sip 3 beers while you stir, and then it's ready to go. We were laughing, and so was everybody else. All of us mixed up in the turmoil and satire of our lives. As Boudreaux was saying, "Way, and don't forget about the fricassee." To which I said, "Is that the one where you remove the meat after you brown it, and then use what's left in the pan to make a roux?" "Wait, that's the one." "And then you return the meat and let it simmer." "Yeah, you're right." I love that one, Boudreaux. It tastes so good. I almost forgot about it. I made a mental note to add it to my list. Boudreaux asked, "Did you put the bisque on the menu?" "Shoo, after the recipe you gave me?" The old Cajun snapped his jaw and spanked the table, causing the silverware to jangle. My elation had obviously put him in a better mood. I said, "What about the boudin you were talking about, Boudreaux? You said you were going to get a hold of that guy." "Name's Abear, over to Kenna. They got a shop down there." He scrawled the information down on a Gretel House napkin. "And don't forget about the dirty rice," he added, looking into my eyes. "I got it." "And those beignets for dessert." "And the cracklings for appetizers," I replied happily. Gosh, a dream coming true. Everything's so perfect. My restaurant getting ready to open. What more could a person ask for? Boudreaux, the man that would change my life forever. The simple fact of the matter, on this particular night, I didn't have a clue what we were in for, what Boudreaux was capable of, nor what he had been planning to do. If I could only have seen it coming. I mean, you go look back and look at a movie, end of a movie, all the credits, like hundreds of people doing things for that production. Like here we are running solo.